When Gladys Presley died, no one expected the truth she left behind in her private letters. Hidden for years, her words reveal a mother's deepest fears about Elvis and the life he was living. But what did she really see coming that others missed completely, and why did it hurt so much? The box no one was supposed to open. The summer of 1958 brought a heartbreak that changed the Presley family forever. On August 14th, Gladys Presley passed away at the age of 46. Her death left a deep wound in the hearts of those who loved her. No one seemed more affected than her son, Elvis. The loss created a sadness that lingered long after the funeral was over. For the Presley family, life would never feel quite the same again. For years, people had watched Elvis rise to fame at an incredible speed. His songs were becoming popular across the country, and crowds gathered wherever he appeared. Fans saw a young man living a dream that many could only imagine. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. Success followed him almost everywhere he went. Yet those closest to him knew there was another side to the story. Behind the bright lights and growing fame stood a son who deeply loved his mother. Gladys had been one of the most important people in his life from the very beginning. Through hard times and better days, they remained extremely close. Many people who knew the family often spoke about their strong bond. Even as Elvis became famous, that connection never seemed to weaken. Gladys remained at the center of his world. When Gladys passed on, family members noticed a change in Elvis almost immediately. The energy and excitement people often saw around him seemed to fade. He appeared heartbroken and deeply affected by the loss. Those closest to him could see the sadness he carried every day. Even during important moments in his career, the grief never seemed far away. It was clear that losing his mother had left a painful mark on him. The Presley home also felt different after Gladys was gone. Rooms that once held laughter and conversation became much quieter. Family photographs and personal belongings remained where they had been left. Every corner seemed to hold memories of happier times. Walking through the house often reminded people of the woman who had once filled it with warmth. The feeling of loss seemed to linger everywhere. As the years passed, many of Gladys's belongings were carefully packed away. Some items were stored for safekeeping, while others were simply forgotten. Boxes filled with papers and personal keepsakes sat untouched for a very long time. Nobody paid much attention to them because they appeared ordinary. Life continued moving forward, bringing new events and new responsibilities. The forgotten boxes slowly gathered dust as time passed. Elvis's career continued to grow during those years. New achievements, performances, and opportunities kept everyone busy. The family focused on the present and rarely thought about the old belongings that remained in storage. Those boxes became part of the background, unnoticed and largely ignored. They seemed like simple collections of family memories. No one suspected they might contain something much more important. Eventually, curiosity led family members to sort through some of the old possessions. What started as a simple search for keepsakes quickly became something more interesting. They expected to find old photographs, personal notes, and ordinary family papers. There was no reason to believe they would discover anything unusual. At first, everything appeared exactly as expected. Then they came across something that immediately caught their attention. Among Gladys's belongings was a collection of private letters. They had been carefully kept and stored away for years. The discovery raised questions almost immediately. Why had Gladys chosen to save these particular letters? Why had they remained hidden for so long, without attracting attention? The more the family looked at them, the more curious they became. The letters did not appear remarkable at first glance. Many families keep personal correspondence, and these seemed no different. The pages looked like ordinary writings connected to everyday life. Family members assumed they would contain simple thoughts and memories. Nobody expected major revelations or hidden emotions. They believed they were about to read typical family letters. As they began reading, however, a different feeling slowly emerged. The words seemed more personal than anyone expected. Each page offered a glimpse into Gladys's private thoughts and concerns. The letters revealed emotions that had remained unseen for many years. They felt less like routine notes and more like pieces of a larger story. With every page, curiosity continued to grow. The family started wondering what Gladys had truly felt during Elvis's rise to fame. Had she been excited, worried, or perhaps both at the same time? What concerns had she kept to herself during those important years? Were there thoughts she never shared openly with the people around her? The letters seemed to hint at answers waiting to be discovered. Everyone wanted to know more. Then one particular letter changed everything. At first, the words appeared normal and familiar. The tone seemed similar to the other pages they had already read. But as they moved further down the page, a surprising thought appeared. Suddenly, the letter felt much more significant than anything they had expected. The room seemed to grow quieter as they continued reading. The letter revealed a concern that centered entirely on Elvis. Gladys was not focused on wealth, fame, or public attention. Instead, her thoughts were fixed on her son and the future ahead of him. She worried about what success might do to his life. The words carried a sense of concern that felt deeply personal. It was clear that she had been thinking about these fears for some time. The sentence left everyone stunned. What they had assumed were ordinary family letters suddenly felt very different. These pages were revealing the private heart of a mother who loved her son deeply. The concerns written on the page felt both emotional and surprisingly powerful. If this was only the beginning, there was no telling what other thoughts remained hidden inside the letters. With growing curiosity, the family reached for the next page and continued reading. The mother who saw the storm coming. The next letter carried the family even further into the past. Its pages seemed to pull them back to the years before the fame, before the crowds, and before the world knew the name Elvis Presley. What appeared before them was not the story of a superstar. It was the story of a young boy and the mother who loved him more than anything. As they continued reading, a picture of their early life slowly came into view. So it was a life filled with struggles, hope, and determination. Gladys and her family faced many hardships while Elvis was growing up. Money was often limited, and life was not always easy. Like many families during difficult times, they worked hard to get through each day. Challenges seemed to follow them from one place to another. Yet, despite the difficulties, they remained close. Their love for one another helped them face whatever life placed in front of them. Among all the family relationships, one stood out more than the rest. Gladys and Elvis shared a bond that many people noticed from the time he was young. They spent a great deal of time together and relied on one another for comfort. Elvis often turned to his mother whenever he felt uncertain or afraid. Gladys, in return, watched over him with constant care. Their connection seemed stronger than words could fully explain. As the letters continued, the family reading them began to see just how protective Gladys had been. She worried about Elvis's happiness and wanted to shield him from disappointment whenever possible. She celebrated his successes, but also paid close attention to his struggles. When others saw an ordinary boy, she saw someone sensitive and deeply emotional. Because of this, she often kept a close eye on him. She wanted to make sure he never felt alone. The letters revealed how much Gladys believed in her son. She noticed his interest in music long before the rest of the world did. What started as a simple passion gradually became something much bigger. Elvis spent more time thinking about music and dreaming about what it could become. Gladys could see how important it was to him. She supported those dreams even when the future remained uncertain. At first, the excitement in her writing was easy to notice. She seemed happy to watch Elvis pursue something he loved so deeply. Every small step forward appeared to bring him joy. Seeing him excited made her proud. She wanted him to have opportunities that had never existed for many people in their family. Yet beneath that pride, another feeling slowly began to appear. As Elvis moved closer to his dreams, Gladys's concerns also started to grow. The letter suggested that she sensed changes before most people noticed them. She observed things that others might have overlooked. While friends and neighbors focused on his growing talent, Gladys paid attention to his emotions. She noticed how success seemed to bring new pressures into his life. Those small changes quietly worried her. The deeper the family read, the more these concerns became visible. Gladys understood that chasing a dream often came with sacrifices. She knew that success could open doors, but it could also create distance. The world around Elvis was beginning to change. New people entered his life, and new opportunities appeared before him. While this brought excitement, it also brought uncertainty. One letter seemed especially revealing. Gladys described feeling proud whenever she saw Elvis move closer to his goals. At the same time, she appeared uneasy about the attention he was starting to receive. The admiration of strangers was growing, and more people wanted access to him. What looked like harmless excitement to others seemed different through her eyes. She wondered how much of this attention was genuine. The question lingered throughout the letter. As the pages continued, another fear slowly emerged. Gladys worried that fame could isolate Elvis from the people who truly cared about him. She feared that success might surround him with crowds while leaving him emotionally alone. The thought appeared again and again in different ways. Although she never discouraged his dreams, she clearly worried about where those dreams might lead. It was a concern that seemed to grow stronger with time. The family reading the letters began asking themselves difficult questions. Had Gladys seen signs of future struggles before anyone else? Had she noticed dangers hidden behind the excitement of success? The letters did not provide complete answers. Instead, they created a growing sense of mystery. Each page seemed to suggest that she understood something others had missed. That possibility became harder to ignore. By now, the letters felt very different from the simple family papers everyone had expected to find. They revealed a mother who was both proud and deeply anxious. Gladys celebrated Elvis's progress, yet she also worried about the cost of that progress. Her words carried warmth, love, and concern all at once. Every page seemed to reveal another layer of her private thoughts. The family could not stop reading. Then they reached the end of another letter. The final lines felt heavier than the rest. The hopeful observations that filled earlier pages suddenly gave way to a troubling realization. Gladys's concern no longer seemed distant or uncertain. It felt immediate and real. The last thought on the page stopped everyone in their tracks. Everyone wants something from him now. The price of becoming Elvis Presley. The next group of letters revealed a period when Elvis's life was changing faster than anyone could have imagined. The young man who once dreamed about music was no longer chasing success. Success had found him. His records were selling across the country. His performances attracted huge attention, and his name was becoming known almost everywhere. What had once seemed impossible was suddenly becoming reality. Yet, as the family continued reading, they discovered that Gladys saw this exciting time very differently from most people. To the public, Elvis appeared to be living a dream. Crowds grew larger wherever he went. Fans waited for hours hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Every appearance seemed bigger than the last. Newspapers wrote about him, and his popularity continued to grow. From the outside, it looked like a life filled with happiness and opportunity. But Gladys's letters painted a more complicated picture. As she described these events, her focus was rarely on the fame itself. Instead, she paid attention to what was happening around her son. She noticed the endless flow of people entering his life. New faces appeared everywhere he went. Reporters wanted stories. Fans wanted attention. Business associates wanted meetings. It seemed as though everyone wanted a piece of Elvis's time. The more famous he became, the harder it was for him to find a quiet moment. The letters showed that Gladys was not impressed by fame in the way many others were. While people celebrated Elvis's growing success, she watched him closely. She seemed more interested in how all the attention was affecting him. Her words suggested that she worried about the constant demands placed upon him. She knew he enjoyed performing and appreciated his supporters. Yet she also understood that no one could give so much of themselves forever without feeling exhausted. As the family turned page after page, another concern became clear. Gladys worried that genuine relationships were becoming harder to find. The world around Elvis was changing quickly. More people wanted to be near him than ever before. Some admired him for his talent. Others were attracted to his growing fame. Gladys often wondered who truly cared about the person behind the public image. It was a question she seemed unable to ignore. The deeper the letters went, the more personal her observations became. She described moments when Elvis appeared tired despite all the excitement surrounding him. There were times when he seemed weighed down by responsibilities. While crowds saw energy and confidence, Gladys sometimes noticed signs of exhaustion. She recognized that success brought opportunities, but it also brought pressure. The burden appeared heavier than many people realized. One letter described how busy his life had become. Every day seemed filled with obligations, appearances, and expectations. There was always another place to go, and another responsibility waiting. The pace never seemed to slow down. Gladys worried about how much her son was carrying on his shoulders. She feared that everyone wanted something from him, while very few stopped to ask what he needed. As the family continued reading, they began noticing a change in the tone of the letters. Earlier writings had contained a mixture of excitement and concern. Now the concern was becoming stronger. The observations felt more serious. Some passages sounded less like simple reflections and more like warnings. It was almost as though Gladys could see problems developing long before others recognized them. The letters also suggested that fame could be surprisingly lonely. Even though Elvis was constantly surrounded by people, Gladys worried that he might feel isolated. She understood that being known by millions did not automatically mean being understood. The attention never stopped, yet real connection seemed harder to find. This thought appeared repeatedly throughout her writing. It was one of the fears she returned to again and again. What made the letters especially emotional was the feeling of helplessness they contained. Gladys loved her son deeply and wanted to protect him. Throughout his childhood, she had always been there when he needed guidance or comfort. But now things were different. The forces shaping his life had become much larger than either of them could control. Fame was moving quickly, and it seemed impossible to slow it down. The family reading the letters could feel her growing anxiety. Every page revealed a mother trying to understand a situation that was becoming more complicated with each passing day. She remained proud of everything Elvis had achieved. Nothing in her writing suggested otherwise. Yet pride and worry seemed to exist side by side. The more successful he became, the more concerned she appeared. Then came another discovery. Tucked among the letters was a page that felt more personal than anything they had read so far. The handwriting seemed familiar, but the emotions felt deeper. As they read through the words, they noticed a sadness that had not appeared so clearly before. Gladys was no longer simply describing events. She was sharing a fear that seemed to trouble her greatly. The secret sadness. The next letters felt different from everything the family had read before. The excitement that once appeared in Gladys's writing seemed to be fading. In its place was a deeper emotion that was impossible to ignore. Her words became more personal and more reflective. It was as though she was carrying a burden she rarely shared with anyone. With each page, the family sensed they were moving closer to the heart of her greatest worries. By this point in Elvis's rise to fame, Gladys was facing struggles of her own. Her health had begun to decline, and those around her could see that she was not as strong as she once had been. The demands of life seemed to weigh heavily on her. Even though she continued supporting her son, she was dealing with difficulties that few people fully understood. The letters revealed moments of exhaustion and concern. They showed a woman trying to stay strong while quietly facing her own challenges. As the family continued reading, they noticed how often Gladys wrote about Elvis rather than herself. Even during periods when she was not feeling well, her attention remained focused on her son. She worried about his happiness, his future, and the pressure surrounding him. Her own problems rarely became the center of her writing. Instead, she seemed more concerned about what might happen to Elvis if she could no longer be there for him. That thought appeared again and again throughout the letters. The pages revealed a mother carrying an enormous emotional weight. She had watched Elvis grow from a young boy into one of the most recognized entertainers in the country. She had celebrated his achievements and shared in his excitement. Yet she had also witnessed the pressures that came with fame. Those experiences left her with questions she could not easily answer. The more she thought about them, the more worried she seemed to become. Several letters hinted that Gladys sensed her time might be limited. She never described the future with certainty. But there was a noticeable change in her writing. Some passages carried a feeling of urgency. Others sounded almost like preparations for a future she feared she might not see. The family reading the letters could feel the sadness behind her words. It was subtle, but impossible to miss. As they moved through the pages, one truth became very clear. Gladys's greatest concern was not money. She was not worried about Elvis's success, his popularity, or the opportunities available to him. Those things mattered far less to her than something much more personal. Her deepest fear centered on loneliness. She worried that, despite being surrounded by people, Elvis might one day feel completely alone. This fear appeared throughout several letters in different ways. Gladys often wondered whether there would always be someone in Elvis's life who truly understood him. Fame had already changed many parts of his world. New faces constantly appeared around him, while old relationships became harder to maintain. She feared that genuine understanding would become increasingly rare. The thought seemed to trouble her deeply. The family noticed that her writing was becoming more vulnerable with every letter. Earlier pages contained observations and concerns. These newer letters felt more emotional and exposed. Gladys seemed less interested in describing events and more focused on expressing her feelings. It was as if she was trying to put her worries into words before it was too late. Every page carried a sense of honesty that felt deeply moving. One letter described her concern that people often saw Elvis the performer, but not Elvis the person. She worried that the world admired his success without understanding the emotional cost that came with it. The crowd saw excitement and achievement. Gladys saw a young man carrying enormous responsibilities. She feared that very few people understood how much pressure rested on his shoulders. That realization seemed to weigh heavily on her heart. As the family read further, the suspense continued to grow. It felt as though the letters were leading towards something important. Each page revealed another piece of Gladys's private thoughts. Her concerns were becoming clearer, and her fears were becoming more direct. The emotional distance she once maintained seemed to disappear completely. She was revealing herself in a way she never had before. Then they reached a letter unlike any of the others. The page appeared unfinished. At first, nothing seemed unusual about it. The handwriting looked the same as always. The tone felt familiar. But as they moved closer to the end, they realized something was different. The writing suddenly stopped. The final line stood alone on the page. If something happens to me, there was nothing after it. The letter that left the room, silent. The unfinished letter left everyone with questions that refused to go away. The sentence stopped so suddenly that it felt almost haunting. For several moments, nobody spoke. The room was filled with silence as family members stared at the page. They wondered what Gladys Presley had wanted to say. More importantly, they wondered whether another letter might hold the answer. Carefully, they continued searching through the collection. Each page was examined with growing anticipation. By now, the letters had become far more than old family papers. They had revealed fears, hopes, and private emotions that few people had ever seen. Every new page felt important. Then, among the remaining documents, they found what appeared to be the final, complete letter. Immediately, something about it felt different. The handwriting was familiar, but the tone seemed more personal than anything they had read before. Earlier letters contained observations and concerns. This one felt deeper. It was as though Gladys had decided to speak openly about the thoughts she had been carrying for a long time. The family sensed they were about to read her most honest words. As they moved through the letter, one thing became clear very quickly. Gladys was writing directly about Elvis, not the performer the world admired, not the famous singer appearing in newspapers and magazines. She was writing about the son she knew better than anyone else, the young man she had watched grow up, the boy she had protected throughout his life. The letter described qualities that rarely appeared in public stories about Elvis. Gladys wrote about his kindness. She saw a person who cared deeply about others and often placed their feelings before his own. Success had not changed that part of him. Despite everything happening around him, she still recognized the generous heart she had known since childhood. That was the Elvis she wanted people to see. She also wrote about his sensitivity. According to the picture painted in her words, Elvis felt things deeply. Small disappointments affected him more than many people realized. Harsh criticism could stay with him longer than others understood. While the public often saw confidence and charm, Gladys saw someone who carried emotions quietly. She understood that strength and sensitivity could exist together. As the family continued reading, another theme appeared again and again. Gladys worried that people misunderstood her son. The world knew Elvis Presley the star, but very few knew Elvis the person. Most people only saw what appeared on stage or in public appearances. They never witnessed the private struggles, worries, and emotions that existed beneath the surface. Gladys feared that this misunderstanding would only grow as his fame increased. The deeper they read, the more emotional the letter became. Gladys believed that behind the excitement of fame was a young man carrying enormous emotional burdens. Expectations surrounded him everywhere he went. Millions admired him. Countless people wanted his attention. Every decision seemed to attract the public interest. While many people viewed these things as rewards, Gladys saw the weight they placed on her son. The letter suggested that Elvis often tried to handle these pressures without showing how much they affected him. Gladys worried that he preferred keeping his struggles private. Rather than sharing his pain openly, he seemed more likely to carry it alone. This thought appeared to trouble her deeply. She feared that people would assume he was fine simply because he rarely complained. Page after page revealed a mother's concern. There was no anger in her words. There was no bitterness. There was only love mixed with worry. Every sentence seemed written by someone desperately hoping her son would find happiness despite the pressures surrounding him. The family reading the letter could feel the emotion growing stronger with each paragraph. By now, many of them expected a shocking revelation. The letters had created an atmosphere of mystery from the very beginning. Hidden papers, private thoughts, and unfinished sentences naturally led people to expect a dramatic secret. Yet, as they reached the final pages, a different truth began to emerge. The heartbreaking reality was not scandalous at all. The real secret was how deeply Gladys loved her son. Her greatest concern was never fame. It was never money. It was never success. What worried her most was the possibility that Elvis might feel alone in a world filled with people. She feared that the demands of fame would isolate him from genuine relationships. She worried that few people would understand the emotional weight he carried. Above all, she feared that she would not always be there to help him through those struggles. Then the family reached the final page. The room grew quiet once again. Everyone seemed to understand that they were approaching the end of Gladys's story. The final lines appeared simple, yet they carried tremendous emotion. There were no dramatic revelations waiting. No shocking confessions appeared. Instead, the last message reflected the same love that had filled every letter before it. She expressed one final hope. I only hope he knows how much he is loved. Nobody spoke after reading those words. The silence felt heavier than anything that had come before. Suddenly, the meaning of all the letters became clear. Every fear, every concern, and every warning came from the same place. They came from a mother who loved her son completely and worried endlessly about his future. As the family reflected on Elvis's life after Gladys's death, many of her fears seemed painfully familiar. Her loss affected him deeply. Those who knew him often spoke about how much he loved his mother and how hard her death was for him. Looking back, some of the concerns expressed in the letters appeared almost heartbreaking. The loneliness she feared, the pressure she worried about, and the emotional burdens she described all seemed connected to struggles that later became part of his life. The family slowly realized something important. Gladys had understood Elvis in a way very few people ever could. She saw beyond the fame, beyond success, and beyond the public image. She recognized both his strengths and his vulnerabilities. Long before others noticed them, she understood the challenges he might face.